Welcome to The Real with Dr. Silvermoon Cashen. Real conversations, purposeful living, practical wisdom. Hi, and good evening. I'm Dr. Silvermoon Cashen. I rose from poverty, I'm built by resilience, and I'm living with intention. This is episode 1, and tonight we're not rushing anywhere. We're starting at the foundation. We're talking about what real actually means in a world full of noise. If you're listening right now, I want you to know something gently, not dramatically. You didn't land here by accident. People don't usually tune in to spaces like this casually. They come when something inside them is asking for clarity. Not chaos, not crisis, just clarity. Maybe you're not falling apart. Maybe nothing looks wrong on the outside, but inside, something feels off. You might be functioning, showing up, handling responsibilities, being dependable, and still feel disconnected from yourself. That's not failure. That's awareness waking up. And The Real with Dr. Silvermoon Cashen exists for moments exactly like that. This is not a place where you're told who to be. It's a place where you're invited to notice who you've been becoming. So before we talk about growth, before we talk about purpose, before we talk about change, we need to talk about honesty. Because being real starts there. Honesty is uncomfortable, not because it's cruel, but because it removes distractions. It strips away the stories we tell other people, the roles we play, the explanations we've rehearsed. Here's something many people don't realize. Most of us already know what needs to change. We know when something isn't working. We feel it when we're forcing things. We sense it when we're out of alignment. What we avoid isn't the truth. It's what the truth might require. And that's important. And I need you to hear that again. What we're avoiding isn't the truth. It's what the truth might require. Because honesty doesn't just reveal what's happening. It asks a follow-up question. And that question is, what am I going to do with what I now see? Think about a habit you've been justifying, a relationship you've been tolerating, a version of yourself you've been maintaining because change feels risky. That quiet discomfort you feel around it, that's not guilt. That's growth knocking. Knock, 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 knock. But growth costs comfort. And comfort is something we cling to, even when it's costing us peace. I've seen people delay growth for years. Not because they weren't capable, not because they weren't intelligent, not because they didn't want more, but because honesty would require courage, and courage feels heavy before it feels freeing. Let me say this gently but clearly. You cannot heal what you refuse to name. And you cannot grow beyond what you are unwilling to face. Now, I want you to take a minute because it's important for me to make sure that you hear that you actually hear what I'm saying. You cannot heal what you refuse to name, and you cannot grow beyond what you are unwilling to face. That doesn't mean you face everything at once. It means you stop lying to yourself about what you already know. Now let's slow this down even more, because honesty alone is not enough. How you respond to truth matters just as much as recognizing it. This is where many people confuse authenticity with reactivity. Reactivity is an emotional impulse. Authenticity is alignment. If something triggers you and your immediate response is sharp, if you speak from frustration and regret it later, if you say, "That's just me being real," but feel unsettled afterwards, that's not authenticity. That's emotion asking to be processed, not expressed unchecked. One thing, there is nothing wrong with being real. When my children were younger, which was a long time ago, I used to always say to them, "That's just me being real. I'm just being real with you. Hey, I'm a real person. What did you expect me to say?" There's nothing wrong with that. It's the feeling and the emotion after you say it. If you're thinking, maybe I shouldn't, maybe I should have, maybe, then that is where you are responding with emotion, not with authenticity. Because if you are responding with authenticity, you are not exploding, because authenticity doesn't explode, it pauses. My children back in the day, they used to always say, whenever I made the comment, "That's just me being real," or "I'm being real," they used to always say, because back then hashtags were common, like they're still prevalent. But what I mean is, like, everybody walked around hashtag this or hashtag that. So my children would always say hashtag Dr. Real. And that kind of stuck with me, and it still sticks with me. Because when I spoke to them and I was saying I was just being real, I was speaking it with authority, not with emotion. And when I did speak it with authority and not with emotion, I was speaking it authentically, because I wasn't exploding. I wasn't out of character. I was standing up. I wasn't processing emotions. I was standing up for what I believed in the conversation that was transpiring at that time. So keep in mind, reactivity is an emotional impulse. Authenticity is an alignment. And as I said before, Authenticity doesn't explode, it pauses. It asks, what response reflects who I am becoming, not just how I feel right now? Because being real does not mean saying everything you think. It means choosing responses that match your values, not my values, not your neighbor's values, not your mentor's values, not your friend at the gym's values, your values. Remember, this is a place where you come to step into the person that you've been becoming, not where I or anyone else for that matter should be telling you how to become. So when I say that authenticity means choosing responses that match your values, I'm saying to you, your values. Here's something else that doesn't get talked about enough. Many people believe they're being honest when they're actually reacting from unhealed places. Pain, when it goes unexamined, tends to speak louder than wisdom. Authenticity sounds calmer than you think. It feels steadier than drama, and it carries clarity, not chaos. And when you learn this distinction, things shift. Man, your conversations change, your boundaries change, your peace changes. I want us to slow down again here, because depth doesn't come from rushing past what feels uncomfortable. Let me ask you something. You don't need to answer it out loud. When was the last time you felt fully aligned with yourself? Not impressive, not productive, not praised, aligned. And I want you to take a moment to think about that. For some people, that question brings up a memory. For others, it brings up silence. And if it's silence, that doesn't mean you failed. It usually means you've been surviving. A lot of people aren't disconnected because they don't care. They're disconnected because they've been in response mode for a very long time. Responding to expectations, responding to responsibilities, responding to other people's needs. When you live like that long enough, you stop asking yourself honest questions. Not because you don't want answers, but because you're afraid of what honesty might require. So here's another question to sit with. When in your life are you doing what's expected instead of what's aligned? Let me say that again. Where in your life are you doing what's expected instead of what's aligned? Think about that for a minute. Again, you don't have to mention it out loud. Just process it. Alignment doesn't always ask you to quit everything. Sometimes it simply asks you to stop abandoning yourself in small ways. Wow. Take that in for thought. Alignment is asking you to stop abandoning yourself in small ways. Now, what could that look like? Small ways could look like saying yes when you mean no, staying silent when something matters to you, explaining yourself when no explanation is needed. Those moments don't seem big at first, but they add up. And over time, they create distance between who you are and who you're presenting to the world. That distance is exhausting. Exhausting. I want to talk about something people rarely have language for. That invisible weight you carry, the weight of holding it together, the weight of being the strong one, the responsible one, the one who figures things out. If this is you, you may not feel burned out in the dramatic sense. You're still functioning, still showing up, still doing what needs to be done. But inside, there's a quiet tiredness. Not the kind that sleep fixes. The kind that comes from carrying too much for too long without naming it. That weight doesn't mean you're weak. It means you've been strong without support. And honesty begins when you stop pretending that weight isn't there. Let's talk about something uncomfortable but common. When life looks good on paper but doesn't feel good in your body, when you've achieved things you've prayed for but still feel unsettled, when you're grateful and confused at the same time, that doesn't make you ungrateful. It makes you aware. Misalignment often shows up after progress because success doesn't automatically equal fulfillment, and growth doesn't automatically mean alignment. If you've ever thought, I should be happier than this, you're not broken. You're becoming conscious. Most people didn't wake up one day and decide to perform. They learned it. They learned it by being rewarded for certain behaviors, by being praised for being agreeable, by being valued for being productive. Over time, performance becomes protection. But protection eventually turns into pressure. And pressure disconnects you from yourself. From a faith perspective, being real means living aligned, not performative. Let me explain what that actually looks like. Living performatively doesn't mean you're fake. It usually means you're trying to say the right things, trying to appear strong, trying to live up to expectations that were never meant to carry your weight. For some people, that looks like using spiritual language while avoiding personal responsibility. It can look like quoting values without practicing them privately. It can look like presenting peace while avoiding hard conversations. This isn't about blame. It's about awareness. Alignment is quieter. It's who you are when no one is watching. It's how you treat people when there's nothing to gain. Faith was never meant to be a performance. It was meant to be a foundation. And even if faith is not your framework, this still applies. Alignment is human. Universally speaking, being real comes down to three things: integrity, self-awareness, clarity. Integrity means your actions match your values, even when it's inconvenient. Self-awareness means you're willing to notice patterns without shaming yourself for them. Clarity means you know what matters to you and are willing to adjust when your life doesn't reflect that. Here's a gentle question to sit with. Where am I performing instead of aligning? Not to judge yourself, not to criticize your past, just to notice. Because clarity doesn't come from pretending harder. It comes from being honest sooner. And this is the heart of today's conversation. Clarity begins when we stop performing and start aligning. Not when life is perfect, not when fear disappears, but when honesty replaces appearance. That's where real growth begins. If this conversation is stirring something in you, confusion, emotion, clarity, even discomfort, that doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. It usually means you're doing it honestly. Depth doesn't always feel good in the moment, but it leaves you clear afterward. This is why I believe so strongly in real conversations, not conversations that hype you up for a moment, but conversations that stay with you when the noise comes back. Because clarity doesn't shout, it settles. And before we close, I want you to hear this clearly. You don't have to walk this journey alone. Let me say that again. You do not have to walk this journey alone. If tonight stirred something in you, if you found language for something you've been feeling, if you feel the pull to go deeper, sometimes the next step is conversation. If you would like to connect with me, you can connect with me via my websites, which are www.drsilvermooncashen.com or www.drsilvermooncashen.biz. Doctor is not spelled out, it is just DR. You can email me at drcashen@drsilvermooncashen.com. Again, doctor is not spelled out, it is just DR. You can text me at 772-777-8868, or you can call me at 833-LAUNCH-U, which is 833-LAUNCHU, or 855-422-7436. For both lines, press option 2. Everything I do is rooted in this mission. Anointed warrior, innovative healthcare, empowered mindsets, intelligent technology, health integrity. As we close, take this with you. You don't have to become someone new to live aligned. You have to return to who you've been ignoring. Real doesn't mean perfect, it means present. And alignment doesn't mean easy, it means honest. I'm Dr. Silvermoon Cashen. I rose from poverty, I'm built by resilience, and I'm living with intention. Join me every Wednesday evening at 8 p.m. right here on the DoD network for The Real with Dr. Silvermoon Cashen. And next week, we're going deeper. In episode 2, we'll be talking about purpose. Why it isn't something you find one day, but something you live out, one intentional choice at a time. Until next Wednesday, stay honest with yourself, stay open to clarity, and keep choosing alignment over appearance. I love you. Good night and goodbye.